Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Liverpool Daily News. We've got a couple of transfer lines that we want to discuss this morning, and we'll start with Roberto Firmino. It was obviously confirmed last week that he wouldn't be signing a new contract and that he would be leaving Liverpool at the end of the season. Ben, there's been a report that Firmino has received a huge offer to go and play in Saudi Arabia, following the path, of course, of Cristiano Ronaldo. Do you agree that he shouldn't really be entertaining that and he should be looking to play at a higher level? Because I think I remember seeing that the quality of the Saudi Pro League is about equivalent to sort of League Two in England, and he's got much more to give it at the top level, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure about the League Two comment. I haven't watched enough, but I'll take your word for it. I do think he's someone who can play at the top level, and he showed it against Manchester United. He only spent a few minutes on the pitch, still got a goal, and even though his injury problems have been a lot more recurrent this season, it's been a lot more frequent, especially I think last season as well. But when he's on the pitch, he's scoring, he's contributing to goals, he's getting assists. So really, he's still got that quality when fit, and I think he will have offers. I think there's reports that potentially Barcelona or Inter Milan might be interested in him. I think I would love to see him in Serie A. I think he'd thrive in Italy, and I think that would be a good move. So I do think maybe Saudi Arabia is a bit premature at the moment. If you look when Ronaldo moved there, he's 37, and Firmino is considerably younger at 31. I know he's turning 32 later this year, but I still think he's got a few years left at the top, and I think he should follow the sort of Sadio Mane path, moving to a competitive team in Europe in a top 5 league, and I really think that's what he's going to do as well. I think he seems like someone who the reason why he left Liverpool is because he wants to play at the top level, and he wasn't really satisfied with the minutes he was getting. So I think for that reason, I think he will move somewhere where he's going to be competing for titles in Europe and still playing in the Champions League as well.
Yeah, obviously would raise the prospect that Firmino faces Liverpool in Europe, which again, similar to the kind of prospect with Mane, is a bit of a surreal thought. And yeah, you're right to talk about, I suppose, a new challenge and whether the Saudi Pro League would be enough of a challenge, I suppose, just on the thing about kind of League Two, National League quality. I think there's actually a model. I can't remember exactly who posted it, but according to the models that kind of account for the quality of various leagues, apparently that's what it is. So yeah, you're right. At this stage of his career, it'd probably be a bit too much of a step down. I mean, you mentioned there about potentially playing in Italy and how you'd like to see that. Can you explain a bit more about why you think that would be a good fit? And also, obviously, he's been linked with Barcelona too. Is there something you could see happening there, or with maybe Lewandowski being at the new camp? Is that kind of a closed avenue?
I think in terms of Italy, just the pace of the game tends to be a bit slower. I mean, Napoli are the antithesis to that because they absolutely obliterated Liverpool this season with their speed of game. But in general, it tends to be a bit slower, and I think that would suit Firmino and his technical ability. He's never been the fastest or the most explosive, but I do think he would kind of thrive in that role. And I could see him at Inter Milan as well. I think that's a historic club. Big rivalry with AC Milan, still competing in Europe. I think that would be a good fit. Whereas with Barcelona, like you say, Lewandowski's there. Griezmann kind of struggled when he went to Barcelona, and I see Firmino as a similar player to Griezmann. So, while I do think La Liga is similar to Serie A in terms of the pace, and I do think Firmino would suit the technique and the tiki-taka sort of passing, short passes that a lot of La Liga clubs play. I don't necessarily think he would suit Barcelona. Now, on the other hand, I think if Atletico Madrid were interested, I that's something I think I would like to see. Him playing under Diego Simeone with his pressing. I think Simeone would like that, and I do think that would be an interesting fit.
Yeah, and obviously the prospect that they lose another false nine in Joao Felix this summer, if he indeed makes his kind of loan move permanent, and Firmino might be a potential replacement on that one. Obviously, quite a bit older, but still an interesting option potentially. Let's talk about incomings to Liverpool then. A report from Football Insider says that Levi Colwill is potentially a target. What have you made of him so far in what is, I think, his sort of first Premier League season? And do you think he'd be a good fit in terms of his profile for Liverpool?
Yeah, he kind of stood out to me last season. I think he was one of the top defenders in the Championship at Huddersfield, and I was really impressed with the way he sort of is composed on the ball. He's a big presence aerially, and I did think it was going to be a step up coming into Brighton, but he seemed to have done well, and I do think he's someone who has helped to elevate Brighton, and he's helped sort of. I wouldn't say Brighton were necessarily bad defensively last season, but I do think he's taken them to the next level, and we saw that several times against Liverpool now as well. He's had some good games, and he's managed to control a pretty good Liverpool attack. He's dealt with the impact of Salah really well, for example, and I do think he's a profile that would suit Liverpool. He's quick. He's good in the air, like I said. He's comfortable on the ball. I mean, he pretty much fits the bill. And I think for me, it would be an interesting transfer, especially because, as we have seen reports coming out, Chelsea have an inflated squad sometimes. They have too many players even in training, and that's going to be an issue for them. There's some of they are going to need to cut down. And yes, Liverpool are also being linked with Mason Mount. And while in normal circumstances, I think it would be pretty much unheard of for Liverpool to sign 2 Chelsea players in one transfer window. But I think right now there is a genuine possibility. And let's not forget, I mean, Chelsea back in the day in the early 2000s signed 3 Liverpool players in the space of a year, in Benayoun, I think Fernando Torres and Raul Meireles. So it's not impossible. And I think given the fact that they look unlikely to make the Champions League as well, I think that opens up the possibility of Liverpool getting potentially both deals done.
Yeah, there was a report actually a month or so back that with obviously all the investment they made, if they didn't get the Champions League, then it was going to create, unsurprisingly, some FFP difficulties, and Liverpool might capitalise on that. Somebody in the chat saying that Colwill's an upgrade on Gomez, and we might come back to that in a second. But just on the Chelsea thing, I mean, they've got Fofana, who's obviously been injured for a large portion of the season, but one of the best kind of young centre backs. Really, you could say the same probably about Badiashile. Chalobah's at the club as well. Do you think that would mean that Chelsea genuinely kind of consider this one? Because I suppose you do have the comfort of knowing those options are there, but also you're still selling probably one of your most promising talents to potentially a direct rival. So it's a very difficult one for them.
Yeah, I do think the fact that they have a lot of players at a similar age in his position helps in getting, in not necessarily prioritizing him. I mean, you mentioned those players, but they also got Thiago Silva and Koulibaly at the club as well. So they're pretty stocked for centre backs, and I think that is going to make them probably a bit more lenient in letting him go. Whereas, I don't think Liverpool, even though there's Nat Phillips and Joe Gomez, I don't think Liverpool necessarily have that luxury, and they can definitely offer him a place in the squad. And I think for that reason, I do think Liverpool is a bit more of an appeal, even from the players' side. If I was Colwill, I wouldn't necessarily want to sit around at Chelsea and wait for my chance when I know there's players who Chelsea invested a lot of money in and who are probably going to play ahead of me because of their transfer fees alone.
Yeah, and to return to that point about Gomez, do you think the best option in terms of squad management would be to sell Matip in the final year of his deal and then bring in a young centre back like Colwill? Or do you think, if it's Joe Gomez, maybe he sees a young player come in and he's like, well, now hang on, that's kind of my role being supplanted. Now I want to leave the club. So how do you see that kind of dynamic?
It's a tough one. I mean, not just even in terms of what you mentioned, but the financial aspects of any deal, really. Liverpool are going to have to sign midfielders this summer, potentially even a backup attacker with Firmino leaving. So it doesn't leave a lot of space in whatever the budget will be from FSG, especially if one of those midfielders is Jude Bellingham, who's obviously probably going to cost maybe half of the budget that Liverpool have allocated to them. So even in terms of that, if Liverpool do want to refresh the defensive options, which I'm in favour of, I do think there needs to be something else. And I think Gomez in particular hasn't really been his best since coming back from those injuries. Matip as well. So I do think I would like to see another option come in, and Colwill would be a good fit. I think he's someone who's comfortable playing on the left side of defence and the right side. And that's a huge bonus because right now Liverpool don't really have anyone else behind Van Dijk who can play on the left. I mean, Gomez tried, didn't really succeed. Konate looks way more comfortable on the right as well. I don't think Matip has played a lot on the left. He's clearly a right-sided centre-back. So if I had to choose, I think I would go with Matip because he's on the shorter length contract. He has kind of shown signs of a little bit of a decline this season, especially in terms of the pace, which you need in a club system to be able to play in a high line. So I think I would go for him, and just as well, the homegrown factor I think is in favour of Gomez too, because Liverpool are probably going to be losing Milner, Oxlade-Chamberlain, and they are and that homegrown quota will need to be filled up somehow.
Yeah, definitely. That's obviously an important consideration with every transfer window, especially for Liverpool at the moment. I think that will about do us for this morning. Thanks very much, Ben. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. for another stream. In the meantime, remember to check out all the content that goes up on liverpool.com today. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.